Well, welcome to this video, and I hope you like it. If you do, click the like button, hit subscribe, and share with a friend. Okay, a little bit on doing Perc tests. I've got my Perc tubes here that I built myself. I'll show a little bit more about how they go together. It's basically a piece of 3-inch pipe, an end cap, and a yardstick. These things are 36 inches long. You can make them longer or shorter. I put a little stop on them to keep the yardstick from dropping through, and I put a float on the bottom. The float raises it up, and as the water level drops, you just measure the drop. You dig a hole as deep as you need to. You should be where the bottom's roughly at the depth of where you're planning to do infiltration. This one's at 30 inches, the other two are at 36. They're almost totally obscured. They're only 36-inch tall tubes. Actually, I think they're maybe a hair over 36 inches total, but you know, they're set up for a yardstick working in them. So first you dig a hole with a post hole digger. You might need a digging bar to smash through some rocks or something. I tried to use a shovel to cut out a nice little piece of sod since I'm in mowed grass here. That way when I backfill it, you know, I can make it look somewhat decent. And the way you do the testing is you go and usually every 15-minute intervals. Sometimes if they're really slow, you can go to half-hour intervals, but you measure the amount that the water level is dropping. So I started out with these things all sitting at 12 inches. It doesn't matter where you start, you just got to be consistent. 12 inches is good. You need to use at least 6 inches. But yeah, I bring it up to 12 inches and then it'll slowly go down. And you know, this one's down to 11 already. This guy's going fast. We got one that's hardly moving at all. That's why it's good to do a set. I'm doing a set of 3 here, so you can kind of average them out. Gives you a better idea what the overall soil's like. You know, if you're sitting on top of a flat rock, it'll perk a lot slower. If you're sitting on top of, say there's a rodent burrow or something underneath, it'll make it artificially faster. So, you know, if you only did one test, regardless of what method you use, you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket, and you might be taking an outlier as the truth, where normally these type of Perc tests, they do a group of 6. I'm only doing a group of 3, mainly because I only had 3 Perc tubes, and it's hot as balls out here, and it's hard digging 36 inches down with a post hole digger and 90-degree heat and 90% humidity. But at any rate, you go around every 15 minutes, you measure how much it dropped down, and then you top it off with more water to bring it back up to the same level. And I filled up these buckets. I'm close to a river here, so I just filled up buckets with river water. But then I'm using this watering can so I can kind of precisely bring it back up to just the right level. And if you're off by, you know, a quarter of an inch or whatever, just record that so that you're recording the total drop every hour. So it's, you know, how many inches it dropped, or how, you know, in every interval. Obviously, if you're using 15-minute intervals, multiply that by 4. But what you're doing is you're trying to take these readings until, usually that they'll limit it to 4 hours, or you wait till you get, you know, 2 or 3 readings that are consistently within a quarter of an inch of each other, that are real close. So you're waiting for it to either level out and get a consistent reading every time, or you're waiting for it to, or you're just running it until, you know, it just becomes, I always say redundant. Sometimes they just don't level out. They got something weird with them. But usually, you know, on something like that, you'd average out the last 4 readings. Normally, when it evens out, you go with the very last reading, and obviously, if it's a 15-minute reading, you'd multiply it by 4. And you do it individually per hole. So one hole might even out before another hole. So you're not averaging between the holes for your initial reading. Each hole will have a reading of X inches per hour, and then you can average between your final reading on all the holes to get an overall view of the site. Or if you have one that's you know, way off from the rest of them, sometimes you just throw that out as an outlier, just figuring there's something underground affecting it that you can't see, because obviously none of us have x-ray vision. I don't know if I'm sitting on top of a big flat rock or, you know, a groundhog nest or something that, you know, it's just going down the groundhog hole and going away or whatever. So just keep that in mind. And it's down to 10 inches already. But yeah, and then you know, while I'm digging, I usually record. It's kind of drying out now. Well, the side over there away from the sun isn't. Each layer has slightly different colored soil, and you can measure down and record the depth of each layer of soil and what the color is. There's a thing called a Munsell book. I'll show that in a minute. And sometimes you'll hit layers that, like this one, it's not real prominent, but hopefully it shows up on camera. There's what they call mottles. There's some more reddish and some more grayish dots intermixed. So that's just smear right there. But yeah, if you break it apart, it gives you a better idea. So it tells you a little bit about the soil structure and things like that. Run it between your fingers. If it feels floury, that's more silt. Obviously gritty is sand, and if it's smooth feeling, it's clay. You can also tell the clay content to some extent by trying to make a ribbon between your fingers. See, this is breaking off, so there's not a whole lot of clay in that particular piece. It's a lot more silty. Even though I can feel clay in it, it's a lot more floury and silty. There was some of this that had a little bit more clay content. It wants to make a little short ribbon before it breaks. But yeah, and the more gray the soil is, usually the wetter it is. Models are usually an indication of the seasonal high water table. That's an area where part of the time it's you know, it's the water table's high there and kind of starves it of oxygen, and then other times it's low and it gets some oxygen from the air down there. That's why you got the models. Some of it's kind of oxidized and some of it sort of isn't. So, well, that's about it for how a perc test works. Got to keep an eye on the time here. But yeah. Okay. Another little tip is if you think it might have stuck or something, it's okay to just kind of boop it like that, just to make sure it's not sticking or something. These move pretty freely. Some people put like an inch of gravel or something in the bottom to help keep these things stood up. I'm not doing that here. Some of them have a slight lean to it. I just leave them with whatever slight lean they've got the way they're sitting. That way I'm consistent. I mean, you know, you don't want to have them leaning at a 30-degree angle or something, but, you know, this one here is probably leaning the most, and yeah, like 3 degrees off a straight isn't going to hurt anything. You know, it only really hurts things if it's going to really affect the readings. But at any rate, this right here, this is a Munsell book. Munsell was an interesting guy. He basically codified colors. But most of your soils are going to be yellow, red, or red. That's why you got the different things. YR is yellow, red. Y is yellow. R is just red. And you've got color, hue, or color value, which is like how much of the color, and then chroma going this way. Chroma's going left to right. Yeah, you can see the little description there. Chroma. And the value is basically from lighter to darker going down the page, and like from grayness going to more and more of the color going from left to right. And each of these things is a little sheet like that. You can see the mess on them here. And what you do is you get a piece of the soil. It's really hard to do this one-handed. You get a piece of the soil and you hold it behind the page. Obviously this isn't matching up, but you just go through until you match it up the best you can. It should be a little bit damp. Some people carry a little like water spray bottle and kind of mist it because it makes the color. This stuff here has been, even though this stuff was readable when I took it out of the hole, you know, it's baking in the 90-degree heat. You can see it's getting dry, and even the stuff that was a little bit clayey is getting a little bit, you know, more crumbly now, just because the moisture is getting baked out of it kind of fast. It's a really hot day today. And we're right out in the direct sun. But that's how this works. So you would write down the value as, you know, the page here. This is 7.5 YR, and then the value number, let's say it's this one, 6, and then you come over this row, and however many you come over, you look at the bottom of the page, and then that's the other thing. So say you are this square right here, that would be 7.5 YR 5/4. So that's how that works. And then some of these things have the models. Like you can still see some of the modeling on this one here. So you would have a value for both colors. And of course, there's the main one, and then the one that has the lesser amount is considered the model. So it can be reversed. Usually it's a more colorful soil with grayer models, but sometimes that can be reversed. So you would note both of them, and you can note the size and the percentage of the models. And you know, this book has a little bit more direction on some of that stuff. And there's some other interesting things as far as like stone size and things like that. Maybe I'll go, yeah. Here's the thing about the models here. Kind of showing you how to estimate how much stuff you've got. Here's the little bit about soil structures. Showing as far as the size, what they consider fine, medium, coarse. Mostly, at least with doing this, we're mostly describing the model sizes. But yeah, that's a brief overview of that. Gotta keep keeping an eye on the time here. Got a little bit of time left. I seem to be long-winded today. Oh, sun's baking my brain. Well, that's probably it for this part. Maybe I'll add a little bit more later. Hopefully it's a little bit intuitive here, and it's not too complicated, but maybe I'll show a little bit more on how the math works and how this stuff's described and everything later. I mean, it's just chicken scratch on a tablet right now. Probably better to describe it when I do an organized version later. So hopefully that's interesting. And a little better look at two of these guys out of the water. It's just 3-inch Schedule 40 PVC. Put a cap on the top here. Cut a hole in the cap, a little slot here for this to go through. These just happen to have a 1/4-inch hole. You can drill a 1/4-inch hole and put a dowel rod in it. Obviously, different size hole, different size dowel rod. That's just what worked with these. Drill a couple of random holes near the bottom so that whenever you stick it down to the bottom. It doesn't like close it off here. And then it's just a styrofoam ball I'm using for a float. You can use other things. These things you can get in an arts and crafts store, and you can get them in a size that'll fit inside here. I think these are supposed to be 2.5 inch balls here. And yeah, just cut a little bit of a slot and jam the yardstick in there and glued it in. So yeah, as you can see, overall these things are a little more than 36 inches tall, because you got to account for part of the ball here and that, so there may be 37, 38 inches, something like that. I don't know. Been a while since I made them. That might even be 40 inches for all I know, although that's probably pushing it. But yeah, that's all there is to it. They're very simple. Just get a length of pipe and cut it. You can use taller ones in a shallower hole. It's hard to do it the other way around. Although in a shallower hole, you know, longer ones will tend to be a little bit more top heavy. Among the sewage enforcement officers, they tend to joke that, you know, as you get older, they get taller, so you don't have to bend over quite as far to read them. But being that I do a lot of these, like these ones here, extra deep, because I'm doing them for an infiltration bed that's going to be kind of deep, and I'm trying to get as close to the actual depth of that bed as possible. So the longer ones are an advantage for me there, because, you know, if these things were only 2 feet long, sticking them in a 36-inch deep hole, I wouldn't be able to even see them. So it's a little bit on that. Maybe I'll do a build video and put some of these together, but I mean, it's uber simple. You should be able to figure it out from this. I mean, it's just a cap. All this stuff came from like Lowe's or Home Depot. I just cut through. I got the thinner caps because they don't really have to withstand any pressure or anything. Cut them with, I believe I drilled a couple holes and just cut between the holes with an X-Acto knife to make the slot there. So okay, just a little additional information on this. Trying to film with my left hand and right with my right here. But as far as taking the measurements on a Perc test, just say this is hole 1. And, you know, you got, you know, first reading, second reading, whatever, on out. And then, say your last couple readings, say it's your 8th and 9th reading. Now, the way you should be taking these readings, you know, you put, you know, you just got to make it make sense to yourself, but I'm just putting top. That's when you top it off. So, say for each reading, you're taking it up to roughly 12 inches. But say on your last one, always record what you took it up to, because you might screw up. So say this is 12.25. This is 12. And give it a 10th reading. Say this is also 12. So then you read where it measures on the stick. Well, you know, I always arrange them so that, you know, the numbers are going down. I've seen people do it where the ruler's upside down and they got to keep track of it in their head. Not a real good system there. But say, okay, this one's 9.5. Then this is 9.25, 9.25. So actually all three of these would be the same, because when you subtract them out, this is going to be the same amount. It's 2 3/4 between them. So it's 2 3/4. Yeah, basically. So this is the actual drop. So this is the number you're using, and when you get 2 or more readings the same, you can stop. So this particular hole would be 2 3/4 inches, and then say this is a 15-minute interval, so then you would have, you know, 4 times this. So this would be 9/4. I'm not going to go into fractions, but basically 2 times 4 is 8. So, well, actually I did that wrong. It's 8 plus 3. So it's 8 plus 3, so that's 11/4 there. So multiply that times 4. So that'd be 44 over 4. So then divide that and you've got 10 inches per hour. That don't sound right. Oh, no, it's 11 inches per hour. That's right. I'm doing my math wrong in my head there. So, yeah, divide that by 4. It's 11 inches per hour. So, sorry, still early in the morning when I'm filming this. I'm a little foggy in the head. So, you subtract what you filled it up to, or you subtract your reading at 15 minutes from the level that you topped it off to for each interval. If it's 15-minute intervals, you multiply it by 4. If it's half-hour interval, you multiply it by 2, and that's your inches per hour of infiltration. So hopefully my foggy head explained that without it being too confusing. Some people would do better putting these in as fractions, you know, using a calculator or whatever. Sorry, I'm moving the camera around a lot. Like I said, I'm trying to film with my left hand and write with my right. But just wanted to give that a little bit of explanation, and I'll see you on the next one. I'll probably do another one going more in depth on the actual soil nomenclature and things like that. I know I touched on it a little bit with the Munsell book, but I felt like if I went and did more detail on that, it would get a little bit too long and cumbersome. So, at any rate, a little explanation of the math, and hopefully this helps. Well, I hope you found that video informative. Hopefully it made you think, and please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that already, and check out the video that should be appearing somewhere around me here, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thanks.